Welcome to the Value Pros Show, where Value Pros get value ready.
Hi, my name is Bruce Scheer, the host of the Value Pros Show. In this webinar, we are talking with Todd Snelgrove, a globally recognized authority on value selling and the former global head of value at SKF. Todd has spent over 2 decades helping companies shift from competing on measurable, defensible value, working with Fortune 1000 organizations to build business cases that win over procurement and finance leaders. He's also co-author of the best-selling book Value First, Then Price, and creator of the frameworks like Total Profit Added, used across industries to justify premium pricing in risk-averse markets. He's also one of our affiliates at valuepros.io. So the focus of this webinar is how to win executive buy-in without cutting your price, using a powerful business case that speaks procurement's language. Todd breaks down exactly how sales teams can collaborate with buyers to frame value early, overcome price objections, and close deals with higher margins, even in a tough economy. He's then joined by me, Dean Edwards, former head of procurement at Levi Strauss, Ingram Micro, and Yahoo, and then Darren Fleming, who introduces our sexy new AI-powered Value Navigator tool to help business stakeholders with their business cases. Welcome to this webinar, and we're really excited for you to be here with us. The focus on this overall series is revenue mastery in 2025. And we've been thrown so far so many curveballs in 2025 with tariffs and other types of economic influences that we weren't expecting. And it's going to make our selling climate, and it already has, much harder. So that was kind of the genesis for us to create this webinar series, Revenue Mastery 2025, Outsell in an Uncertain Economy. We started off with that with our absolute procurement expert, Dean Edwards, and he'll do an introduction just in a minute, but we focused on inside the buyer's minds, what drives decisions in an uncertain economy. And that particular episode can be watched off of the Value Pros website. If you just go to valuepros.io, and then once you're in there, just go to show, and then you'll see Dean talking with us about, gosh, how do we partner with procurement in these economic uncertain times? So that was the first webinar. The second one here is with Todd Snelgrove, and this one is the business case advantage, how to win executive buy-in without price cuts. You know, how do we get to yes, through the power of a business case? Todd will do a beautiful job in talking about that. And then our third webinar series, just coming up next week, third webinar in the series is where I'll lead off, but it'll be a full panel of us talking about how do we elevate the buying experience. And we all saw a statistic at the end of 2024, 59% of the influence on a bold buying decision, with a high consideration solution is influenced by the buying experience. Not the solution, but the experience. And we'll all talk about how do we drive a better buying experience so you can improve your deal performance toward, as we move deeper into 2025. So that's kind of our format. Why don't we do just a quick round of introductions, and then Todd will let you get rolling on that. I'm Bruce Scheer. I'm one of the co-founders at valuepros.io. Lately, I've been calling myself the Value Vitalizer. You'll see that on my LinkedIn profile. And then David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a stakeholder at Value Pros, and my primary goal is to help clients identify the value drivers for their solutions and then translate that in meaningful ways, in personal ways to each customer's status quo environments and KPIs. Dean?
Awesome.
Dean Edwards. I've got decades of experience in procurement, Fortune 500 size organizations such as Kaiser Permanente, Levi's, Yahoo, Ingram Micro, and now I run a company working with sales teams, teaching them how to engage more effectively with procurement to drive better results.
Thank you, Dean. And then Todd.
So I spent 20 something plus years in the B2B market, industrial market, but most of those years was as the first to my knowledge as a VP of value. And it was because the company said, we spend all this money and time and effort creating something that is of value. But the technical buyer was starting to have to involve the financial buyer, procurement. And finance was saying, I'm not willing to pay that much for that. Is it really worth that? What is the value? So the CEO said, guess what? We really need to equip our teams with a business case, the confidence, and all these other things we'll talk about today so they can get to the market and have a value conversation, not a price or discount discussion. I consult on this area right now. I'll close with that. Some of the examples will come from this book. What I like about it, we should always talk about the value first because then price becomes part of that. But if you ever lead with price, they're never going to hear the word value. They're always going to be anchored on that number. What I think is interesting about this book is I think it was 12 companies in the B2B marketplace that wrote about their best practices. They all come back to a thesis that you need a good business case and a bunch of other things. But there were 4 or 5 procurement people that also wrote saying, I'm willing to pay more if there's a business case that's clear, concise, believable, maybe even guaranteed. But it's, not this, here's how we should sell versus this is how we should buy. So with that, just to give you a flavor, a lot of capital equipment and industrial, but you'll see things in there of med tech. The total cost of care is a term. Renewable energy, levelized cost of energy. The terms might change by industry, but the logic is the same. If you're selling something that's not the lowest price, you better have a business case, and it's our job to put that together for the customer. I start with a variation of this slide with my own team, but also with customers to make sure we're using the right term. I mean, price, cost, value, they're all 5-letter terms. I believe everybody that's watching is North America, but they mean completely different things. And the sales team needs to be confident when the customer uses a term to challenge them. And I don't mean be arrogant, but to challenge them. So if a customer says your price is too high, I'd say, might be higher, but my costs are lower. Well, how would you measure that? What are those costs? Where have you done it before? Do I believe you? I mean, procurement people, I spend 15, 20% of my time at procurement events. And they say, it's funny, we'll send out the annual email, we need to get our costs under control. It's 2025. These are the reasons. It depends who you talk to, but they say, a lot of suppliers will come back with price cuts or terms that are associated with that. They don't come back with, we're going to come in with an efficiency program. We're going to walk the line. We're going to enumerate 10 problem areas we can reduce other costs. And values on the upside. And when I mean value, I mean there's the emotional value, but you can also put some numbers on value. I don't have the slide here, but I use a term called total profit added. I want my clients to be more profitable. Cost reductions is only one side of that. The shipping, the receiving, the operating costs, the energy, the water, the downtime. But if I can help a customer get to market faster, in some industries, that's worth a lot. I think you get a patent for 10 years. If you spend 6 months trying to get it to market because of whatever reason, that's lost revenue. In the high-tech industry, technology, you've got a short window of differentiation. If I can help that client get to market faster, it's worth something. And variations of my signature have basically said, I can be the highest price, but the lowest cost, or the best value. And then really have a structured methodology, a tool to say, let me show you how. Here are the 400 drivers we have. Here are the impacts. We'll get to that stuff. But again, hopefully most sales teams are equipped and have role-played that. Thought I put this in because I think it's an interesting piece of research with a professor that's done value management for 30 years, Professor Jim Anderson. And he said, what I find a lot of people doing, saying, I'm just going to create a value-based sales tool. I'll put somebody in a corner and I'll say, grab Excel and make up a model. And then we go to market and it doesn't work. We'll talk to you later why Excel or ad hoc homegrown systems don't work. I just got a ton of examples of things I've seen. And I'm talking from Fortune 100 companies. But real quickly, you're going to get snippets of this as we go through. If anybody wants a chapter or two, just send me a note. But if you put the value methodology and mindset when you create a new product or service, if you challenge, what will this be worth for the customer in this industry versus the alternatives? Because a lot of companies get to the end, they launch it, and they go, why aren't people buying it? Is it part of your selling process? Or is it just, okay, we put the offer into the customer, we didn't do proper discovery, we didn't find the value drivers, but they're pushing back, the price is too high. Hey, Todd, create a case and hit send. Probably too late. You need to frame it early. Has the team been trained on how to sell value, how to talk financial, how to challenge, how to use these terminologies? Is it ongoing? So he says that's the ability to sell. What I find a lot, though, is companies don't spend any time on getting the sales team to want to sell. So sales compensation. I was just at a school and the professor was talking about quality of sales. And my old CEO would say, we probably have 400 ways to discount. But, publicly traded company, this gross margins are all these nice numbers. But if I cut 5%, that's half the profit. But the sales team would laugh. I could cut the 5% today, be at the golf course this afternoon, and it barely would affect any sort of compensation for me. So look at your compensation. Is it driving the behaviors you want? Are you giving customers value buying options? I have created a bunch of performance or outcome-based contracts. They're not near as confusing or risky as people think. It doesn't need to be 100% at risk. But you want to know what? I'm higher priced than the alternative. Let me guarantee you that you're going to get value. We just got to agree on what is value. How would we measure it? How do we define it? How do we implement it? But I signed 180 of those agreements with Fortune somethings around the world. But, if you're saying you're more expensive, maybe you should put some money where your mouth is. And again, what's funny is a lot of companies will say, again, I make up numbers as examples, the threshold for that level is to cut 10%. If you can cut the price 10%, how come you can't guarantee 10% value and not cut the price? My job was then to get the customer to nod and go, you're right. 10% value is better than 10% price. More internal, do you have the right business culture? I mentioned that I was very lucky to get to a CEO that said, we've got to do something. The world is commoditizing what we do. There's a lack of differentiation. There's new competitors popping up every day. If we're not better in really getting this message out there, but it can't be just for the moment. It has to be a commitment. And then I spent a lot of time on customer culture. And what I mean by that is getting to the market and getting people to rethink, when I buy this, should I spend the time, effort, or energy to really even think anything besides lowest price that's landed cost? It's a bearing, it's a this, it's a that. So I would spend a lot of time on stage, articles, this type of stuff going, there's a lot of money to be found or made by really rethinking how you buy this type of stuff. Because, if the perception is it's a commodity and there's a bunch of suppliers, it'll be leverage price. The purpose of the business case is amazing, and it allows the customer to change how they buy. So I'm not a pricing expert, but there's two pricing terms I'll share with you very quickly. ATP, the ability to pay. So whatever year it is, I'm in front of the boss and he goes, market's really bad. I mean, we had all these really value-added solutions. And he goes, that portfolio is really, it's doing better than the rest of the business. But, I said, boss, nobody has money to pay. And he looked at me, he was Scottish, so he had a little bit of an accent. But he said, yes, they do. I will change my ability to pay based on a business case. Because I can understand my sales team saying the customer doesn't have the money. He goes, yeah, if there's the right business case, they will find the money. They will move it from another budget over right away. We thought we were going to do this. We thought we'd cut these costs here, there, and everywhere. Wait, there's a business case that shows me if I do this within this year, or this budget, I'm going to save that, and it's believable. I'll find the money. I'll go to the bank and get the money if I have to. So their ability to change changes. I mean, someone came to my door right now and said, I want to sell you something for $1,000. I'd probably say, I don't have $1,000 lying around. If there was a believable business case, I would take it from another account. I would borrow them. I would do something. I would find the money. Similar but different is the willingness to pay. And I thought this is hilarious. And I think somebody stole this example, but it's a true story. Companies will line up their major goals for the year, their focuses. We're going to buy this system or that, or we're going to upgrade here. And I did a consulting 3-day workshop for a medical company, make the big MRI or CAT scan machines. I always confuse those two. And they talked about a deal they had in Australia. It was done. They got the deal. And do a follow-up a few weeks later, and the vice president of Asian sales or whatever says, well, guess what? We didn't get the deal. And I'm like, what happened? Great. We just spent 3 days. And he goes, you want to know what? We thought we had the deal, so we didn't write the business case. The technical buyer says, you got it, you're better, whatever the better was. I go, so what happened? We lost to a parking lot. Pardon? Yeah, well, somehow the board looked at it and said, incremental revenue for a parking lot. It's newer revenue. It's better, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Sweat the assets on the existing machines. So the takeaway from his was, I think I'm number one on the company's priority. That changes based on my competitor. My competitor is not the other medical machine company. It could be something completely different. So a business case allows people to find the money and prioritize the money. You have to have some marketing that helps the customer rethink. I love the Priceberg because everybody can say, yeah, I see the price. It's whatever percent, but all those things, it's different by every industry, the terminology. But I'll show you, I think, one slide with some numbers on it. It's amazing how the bottom stuff is bigger than the top stuff. But it's our job to bring that information that's reasonable, researched, has some background to it, and say, I don't care where the price is. I used to say, you want a smaller Priceberg. That's how you'll be more profitable. So it's amazing how much research you can find, and you'll see later when we play with this tool, how much better it is today than it used to be. But finding these numbers, one, you could ask your people internally, but there's research out there. So if somebody had the money and wanted to go buy an airplane from Boeing tomorrow, and they wrote the check for whatever, 100 million, that would represent 8% of the total cost of that airplane over its life. The depreciation, the tires, the maintenance, the fuel, the labor on it, the upgrades, etc. Class 8 trucks, for those that are interested, are like the big 18-wheelers you see. Industrial equipment is 12%. So everybody's focusing on that little red line, and they're missing the big gold color. So I was involved in our procurement team eventually because the boss said, we have a structured methodology on our sales side. Maybe we should take that and just do it with our suppliers. Value is value, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side. But he goes, I don't think we have a good structure when we're buying. So we were involved, and we had 3 companies come to us. It was capital equipment, machinery, very important to the business. And the vice president of procurement said to me, well, which one do you think we should choose? I said, well, I like that one. He goes, yeah, of course. Imagine that you're choosing the one that's 10% more expensive. And we were buying a bunch of it was a big dollar amount. I said, yeah, but he showed us how he's going to save 2% on the operating cost. And Bo Inga, we're now friends, good friends actually, said, I don't know what math they taught you in Canada, but 10% is better than 2%. And I said, no, it's not. You need the denominator. 10% of 12 is 1.2. But 2% of 88 is 1.76. It's about 40 to 50% more impactful. The problem is nobody thinks for these, or we thought they were all the same. They're all going to use the same energy. They're all going to have the same cost to repair them. They're all going to fail the same. That's a lot of if. Now, one supplier did a good job of showing why their stuff could be different. But you can find this stuff out there. I was in the UK years ago. Huthwaite International is a sales company, spin selling. But this lady who used to be the head of procurement for the R&D business for AstraZeneca Pharma, who was just becoming the Chartered Institute of Procurement CEO, said this on stage. We were together. Suppliers don't come to us with a business case. Sell your value using our numbers. You don't need their numbers, but you need to put a number out that's reasonable. Not a billion, but in this industry, we think downtime is this. Well, that's for that type. We're more 8 or 12 or something. But my favorite line, because a lot of companies will say, we can't quantify our value. And her point was, if you can't quantify it, don't expect me to do your job. I'm in the middle of buying companies, setting up new plants, and you want me to sit down and do a value analysis on that? That's your full-time job company. You better bring it to me. It better be believable. I think this is really interesting. A procurement gentleman put this together. I do some work with Rob McGuire on the bottom left there. But we were somewhere, he goes, you salespeople better learn the buying process. And I laugh because, we've all got our CRM systems and we have our sales process. He goes, this is how people buy. And how companies buy, how people buy in general for considered purchases, where there's thinking, is very similar. And because we all come from different industries, let's assume we're going to buy a car and walk through the logic. And then afterwards, insert office supplies, insert electrical motors. It's the same process. A need has been identified. The business has said, we need this. At home, I need a new car. The lease has gone out. The kids got older. The other one got in an accident. I don't know. I need a car. Now, you can change need, but I want a car. I need a car. Then I will sit back and in general establish the specifications. So based on my assumption, my knowledge at that point in time, I want a gas car. I want a 4-door car. Okay. Doesn't mean that's logical, but I've sat home and said, I don't want electric and I don't want a diesel. Dad had a diesel car. My mom and dad had one 100 years ago in Canada. It was a little more work than a normal car. So I made some assumptions. So with that, Tesla's out. It's electric. And so I kind of narrowed down a little bit. And then I say, you want to know what? I've had bad experience with that company. I don't trust that company and I don't like that one, but I like these 3 or 4. In my old world, it was always 3 to 4 bids. So I list whoever those 4 people would be that make what I'm looking for. And now I'm going to shop around. RFQ, RFI, and who's got this vehicle? What's your, value proposition? What's your delivery? They're going to do some work and give me a price negotiation delivery type of number. We might do some negotiation. Then I eventually will buy a car from one person. What you need to understand is your ability to get me to focus on value versus lowest cost that meets the minimum criteria dramatically changes over time. So a lot of the stuff needs to be early in the sales cycle, even before the sales or the buying cycle starts. This is what I was saying about the thought leadership. Ooh, the next time I buy, I should think about this. I didn't know that. Oh, okay. I'm framing it earlier. Everyone says, help the customer write their RFQ. Better is to get them to even think of it on their own and then help them. So a piece of research that follows this, and there's so many pieces of research, but they all are close enough to call it even. So this is Gartner Group from B2B buying interviews of 750. The question was, where do you spend your time in this buying cycle? 27% is researching independently. Show me car companies. Who is the best supplier? Tell me, that type of stuff. Or trade associations, maybe, I don't know. Only 22% is with an internal group, the people that will probably use the product or service. 18 is researching independently offline. That's where I'm thinking colleagues, other people within industry, thought leadership groups that they're involved with. Hey, we got to buy an ERP system. What works? What doesn't work? Who should we be careful of? What should I know? I'll buy you dinner and tell me something. 16% is other, and 17% is spent with suppliers. If there are 4 suppliers, you're getting less than 5% of their time. 5% of their time to try to get them to say, oh, we shouldn't care about price. It's all about value is very tough. And I used to get that from colleagues. We're at the RFQ stage, get in the plane and come here and help us get it worked. I'm just suggesting you really need to have value in the messaging and the framing very early to have higher success rates. Now, some things I see some companies do when they become to try to get paid for value that actually cause more problems. So it's called the JAM study. And they gave customers 2 choices. We'll say Whole Foods as an example. People love choice. So you come in, there's different sizes, mixtures, flavors. And what the study found is giving customers too much choice actually causes them to buy less. It confuses them. Buyers are more sets in right away. And they can also unbundle. This is where procurement will say, well, if the strawberry is this and the blueberry is that, and the strawberry blueberry is this, I can start figuring out cost structures and unbundling structures and the like. So my old team was notorious for sending out offers that had 20 tabs at the bottom, showing how smart they were. We can bundle this and bundle that. The point here is give customers options, limit options. And it turns out, based on research, you should give customers 3 options. So with that, I was talking to the team at Value Pros, and it's like amazing how many people, starting the value journey by just trying to write down value drivers is great. We think we can affect this here and here. But a lot of people then end up with an Excel tool. And I'm quickly just going to go through, what to be careful for anybody that does do that. Inaccurate formulas. And I'm talking Fortune 100 companies going, that's wrong. Or it was a mistake. One person had a currency table that wasn't working properly. One person, fat fingered a number somewhere. So, if everybody's creating their own tool and putting on a database somewhere that they're downloading and then modifying, you get a lot of mistakes. Right formulas. I see, technically inaccurate formulas. Some companies are notorious for taking cash flow and calling it free cash. I was just saying to Bruce, if I don't pay my Visa bill this month for $1,000, I don't have $1,000. I just pushed off paying it. So it's time value of money. I still owe it. Depends on the customer. Customer's right. But if you try to claim increased revenue as 100% cash, most customers will say that's not how it works. Most of the time, I'll be able to get customers to agree to contribution margin. You've been running your business this way. The CEO is being paid. The buildings are being paid. Every widget you sell has variable costs. If I help, increase this. So it's a more accurate formula. A lot of these one-off tools don't have any impact ranges. They just say, if I could do this by 1% or 10%. It's not, where have we done this before? Here's some industry research. Here's a link to a report from somewhere that says, here's best practice. Here's where you are. It's just a bunch of what if. Most customers are saying, I've heard so many what ifs, I don't believe them anymore. The idea of, hey, just do this, it'll be worth that. And again, because I started before tools existed, spelling mistakes, currency mistakes, units. Is it number of tons of paper? Is it number of feet of paper? Is it you need to have disclaimers. It's not a legal thing. The output, it's important to have output in the way the customer thinks, and that's different by industry. Sometimes you need more high level IRR and PV. Sometimes you're confusing the customer. For that level of purchase, they don't need to overcomplicate it. And my favorite calculation is this minimum improvement. It'd be great if we could get to here, but I only need to get that much improvement to pay for all this. Some references or links to justifications, whether those are internal success stories, benchmark data, third party, I don't care, but some meat around it, not somebody sat at home and just did we think. I was amazed at this because I'm probably more of a math person than a visual, but graphs make management happy. They love the waterfall graphs. They love the break-even graphs. That business case is going to get passed around from your contact to their boss or other people, and the visualization makes a difference. The professionalization and visualization. Smarter companies have said, I really need to have different stages of case. And I'm not saying these terms are the right terms, but, I'm going to test the calculation, then I'm going to propose it to a customer. Then we're going to banter back and forth about the numbers, the believability. We changed it. If the customer buys the solution or service, it became accepted. They've accepted some of the logic. Then we actually had a system in place for the bigger customers to go back and verify what actually happened. Eventually, we got to the point where we could sit in front of an industry and say, we've done this 800 times in your industry around the world. The min, the max, and the mean have done this on the improvement. We had more data than the customer had. So again, if it's a one-off spreadsheet that just get bounced around and there's no follow-up. So all those, clear and easy to understand. And I think the last thing in pricing that really screws people up for value is giving away free stuff. And the research shows that, if you're given two choices, you're going to go to Whole Foods this weekend and there's a free Hershey's Kiss or there's a 13-cent chocolate, more people will take something for free. There's no downside. I'll just take it. If I told you that the average Hershey Kiss costs, I think 6 cents, 5 or 6 cents, depending on the volume, and the average Lindor chocolate is 55 cents, and I say, well, okay, you want to know what? I want you to realize you're getting more free value. I'm asking you to pay 13 cents to get something that's, we'll just say 53. That's a 40 cent value surplus. I gave you something for free that cost me 5 cents. That's less value. By trying to tell you how it's better doesn't work. If I say, you want to know what? I'm going to charge you 1 cent for the Hershey's Kiss. It changed almost the exact opposite. It changed which one people chose. Because now you're going, I'm doing math and subconsciously maybe, but I'm starting to think. So giving away free stuff screws people up. Small numbers associated with it makes them think of what's better. And they're really structuring the offering for the customers. And the joke I have, I think we've all been to trade shows and stuff. How many people grab stuff off somebody's booth at a trade show, then they throw it out before they even get to the hotel? If you're not willing to pay 1 cent to get the koozie cup, you're not going to probably ever use that thing. Make a donation to the Children's Foundation or something. And you see that the percentage of people that chose neither option didn't dramatically change by putting 1 cent. But it's really interesting how free stuff screws people up. So with this, a takeaway more is to take all the services you offer and structure them into a very low price, 1 cent offering, and one that somebody might pay for. So this is some research from a professor that I've done some work with, but let's get rid of the services that cost us money that the customers don't value. And then let's put together an offering that says, okay, here's the low price or the free version. Just think of Amazon shipping as an example. You want engineering design, Yes. Within 1 week, I'll tell you yes or no. That's maybe free, part of doing business. Oh, for $1,000, I'll return the answer within 2 days, and I'll give you 5 things to be concerned about. Training. Is training free? Todd, not an engineer, drops in, spends 30 minutes for lunch, shows you 3 new features. That's free. A 3-day training, that's for a fee. So again, confusing customers going, what's free, what's not free, and therefore what's of value. All the stuff I covered has been researched a lot from academic groups. What I think is interesting is these are procurement people around the world that have had me on stage having almost the same conversation. I mean, National Institute of Government Procurement, that was Asia. That's American, the Arizona University. So it's not just a sales thing. Procurement gets it. They say, make it reasonable, make it hard, bring us the business case. And I won't go through all this, but from probably one of the seminal books ever started, Value Merchants. I mentioned one of the authors before. This is a recent article from last summer that I was involved in. But, my favorite stat, companies that price for value, which means they've quantified it and sold it, are 24% more profitable than the industry average and 36% more profitable than those who will make it up in volume market share. Reduced discounting, bigger order size, higher customer satisfaction, 80% higher win rate, 25%. The ones with little asterisks are based on the MIT Sloan article. That's the reason why those are there. So we had talked about this. Those that were able to join Deans, I throw this in. I will not go through it all, but companies that buy based on the same way, based on true value, are more profitable. So the top left is an association called Mapping Manufacturers Alliance. So big industrial machineries, people that measured all these variables and made decisions based on them were 35% more profitable than companies that did not. And again, you can see there's a bunch of people saying, we need to buy this way. We know it's better for us. We know it's best practice. How come more sales organizations aren't bringing us this data so we can make an informed decision? So it gives you a flavor on what I focus on. Value. We've got the tool right here, which you'll see in a moment. Again, the marketing and the training and the selling and some pricing stuff around it. With that, Bruce, time for questions, or do we want to take a quick dive through the tool?
Todd, thank you for taking us through that and just looking at the case for change and how we can support our buyers, especially procurement. Dean, as you know, how can we improve the ability to shape that value proposition? And Todd, you make the case that it makes you way more profitable if you're able to do that, especially when most vendors are not doing that. So that's wonderful. Dean, did you have any observations, though? Just curious, based on what Todd was saying?
It tied in with something I've been saying before, but the power of the business case and working with procurement to be able to present that value into the organization is huge, because something procurement really struggles with is getting recognition for its efforts. And the simplest metric that finance uses is the price and the cost, not the value. So the kind of tools that Todd's talking about and the example he gave from AstraZeneca are absolutely spot on. You have to be able to present the business case, then educate procurement in how to present that on your behalf, because the likelihood is you're not in the room when that final discussion is taking place as a salesperson. So you need to empower the procurement guys to be really effective at transmitting that message. Would that resonate with your experience, Todd?
Very much so. And that's a reason also the tool, the calculation, the reports need to be clear, concise, so that your agent, the procurement gentleman, and again, I live with this tool. I know this tool inside and out. That's my industry terminology. That's how I speak. No, that's not how you speak. And that's not how your boss speaks. So instead of trying to overcomplicate it, which some people like to do, that the visualization, the clear, concise, the summary numbers up front. And then, of course, you can have all the reports afterwards of calculations and the like, for sure.
Yeah, I loved your point about the visuals, because that's so true. I worked for one company where if you couldn't get your entire argument on one piece of paper, the execs wouldn't even look at it. You could have a ton of support material, but you had to be able to encapsulate that key value argument in one slide.
And Todd, did you invent the Priceberg?
I did something years ago. People, again, I'm sure other people, because I've had procurement conference and we never used the term Priceberg, but we understood the idea. So
Yeah, so I love it. If you guys remember Todd's visual, the iceberg, it's this, tip of the iceberg out of the water. Underneath the water is so much more. And Todd, you made that very real with that visualization of, the price of that offering and then the total cost over time. How that price was like 8 to 12%, but the total cost was like 88% over time. And the iceberg's so perfect because then you can take the weight off the price discussion, put it more on the total cost of ownership and how you're going to improve that for the buyer to get more value, and hence, not have that discounting pressure. So I love it.
I think I've always gone through I wouldn't call it a process, but the Priceberg, most people will nod. And then I get through a model, which is different by industry because of the terminology. And then they're like, okay, now show me. So it's kind of like educate them to realize, okay, yeah, that's a pretty slide, Todd. Now show me some numbers, examples, and measurements you would do. So that HBR or MIT Sloan says if you go right to just trying to use the numbers without the education that there's more there, people won't listen to the numbers. That's one of the major takeaways. But okay, you show me that there's all these other elements. You show me that there's a ratio of this to that. Now I want to hear those numbers to me. But I used to probably go in and go, look, I'm asking you to spend this. It's going to give you this. Maybe try to close too early. I mean, I got to get you wanting to even talk to me to think differently. So that's why some of those I call marketing slides get people warmed up to have the discussion. Interested. Okay, by the way.
Wonderful. Hey, Darren, I think what we'll do next is, so Todd's talking about shaping the business case, and how can you do that, simply and visually? And I've invited Darren, one of the co-founders at Value Pros. Darren, if you want to do a quick introduction to yourself, and then please do talk about Value Navigator and how that might help people.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Bruce. And thanks, guys. Todd, great stuff. Todd and Dean both. So I'm Darren Fleming, partner with Value Pros, as Bruce said, and also president of ROI Selling. And Value Pros and ROI Selling have worked together to come up with Value Navigator, which is a self-service tool to be able to build a business case on the fly for any solution for any customer, leveraging AI to be able to do that. And so I'm going to show you just quickly. And by the way, all of you will get access. There's a 30-day free trial that Bruce will be sending you a link to, that you can actually try this out on your own for 30 days for free, to just kick the tires. But I'm going to show you the same solution. It's actually called Neutral Host. Not going to get into the details of the solution, for two different customers. So it's the same solution being sold to two different customers, one being, say, Dow Chemical, one being Cleveland Clinic, a healthcare facility, and show you the power of being able to discover the benefits and quantify the value for that solution. So I'll start with Dow. This is, this is the customer. Here's the solution, Neutral Host for the plant. I'm going to go in here. This was the information that was provided to the platform. So it was the name of the solution, a description, the link to the solution, the name of the customer's website, and just the scope of what it is. I've already created this, so I don't have to go through and create it. But this came back with the benefit dimensions, some cost reducing, revenue enhancing, productivity enhancing benefits. And you'll start looking at the benefits. So like operational data collection efficiency, enhanced production monitoring efficiency, enhanced predictive maintenance capabilities. So it's very specific to, in this case, a chemical plant leveraging a telecommunications solution to improve the efficiency of their operations. You can go in and then put the investment in. You can see across here, it kind of builds up the key financial metrics that a customer would care about. You can change the length of the analysis for what the customer wants to see. Go look at some charts of what it looks like over time. This is all built in a matter of minutes based on putting in the target customer, the scope of what you're selling to them, and the target solution. And it'll help build this up in a matter of minutes. So that was an example for Dow Chemical. Now I'm going to go over to this, which is Cleveland Clinic. So in this case, it's a healthcare network. So same product, same solution. And if I look at the description here, it just says it's now targeted at Cleveland Clinic. So it's a different target customer. So now it's talking about improved patient experience revenue, accelerated telehealth adoption, enhanced patient experience revenue, enhanced medical device connectivity, enhanced research collaboration efficiency. So things that are very specific to, in this case, a research hospital network with the exact same product. So it helped fine tune and bring together what are the benefits that a customer will get in this specific situation for this specific customer with your solution. And then you can go in and refine any of these numbers, adjust them. Again, go talk about the investment, review what it looks like, look at a chart view of it, what it looks like over time, where the benefits come down, and then generate a report that then you can use to attach to your proposal to cost justify the overall solution. So just showing you the power of two very different customers in very different industries, and within minutes being able to build the quantified cost justification for the same solution in two very different industries. So love to have you kick the tires, take a look and provide any feedback you have on it and see what you think.
Awesome, Darren. Yeah, and I know we've all seen it, but gosh, just the benefits of that I think are fairly profound. Where you can leverage the power of AI. What's that, Dean?
With it, Bruce. I love the fact that it even does your PowerPoint slides for you.
Yep.
I mean, to talk about empowering the buyer to go forward with a value argument is just phenomenal.
Yeah, awesome. And Todd, I know you played with it as well, et cetera. It's hot off the press, everybody, and it's only going to get better. But as you can see right now, oh my God, just version 1.0. You can have your financial analysis within seconds, based on the work that tool does for you as you collaborate with your buyer to shape that analysis. So really, really powerful.
One thing that Darren didn't hit upon that I think is just as powerful, maybe the way to say it, is each one of those formulas had references of where the data came from. It wasn't, their annual revenue is $1 billion and we think we can improve it by 10%. It was a link to a report, whether their own, there was some meat behind those numbers. Yeah, if you remember.
Yep. Here, I'll dig into one of those to show what Todd's talking about. Just so let me go into one to, of course.
Was it scrolled at the very bottom? Was it at the very bottom where the little eyes were?
Yeah, and as you're hunting around, I'll describe it too, Darren. But what happens is the tool, once it comes up with an example calculation, it'll go, through AI, it'll go out and do the research for you and find, is there a reference benchmark or a study that could be cited that'll add a little bit of gravitas and evidence to that calculation. So just building more social proof into the formula. So, that financial buyer who wants to have a little bit more confidence can see that something is study backed.
There you go.
Here's an example. It's I was showing some analyses that were built with previous versions. So but here's one that actually average number of unplanned chiller related downtime events per year. So obviously very specific to an industrial setting with chillers in a refinery. And here's a report from McKinsey and Company, reducing unplanned refinery outages, reduce downtime chiller or downtime costs in refinery and petrochemical plants. I can click on that, and that pulls up the reference study that actually helps to support what that value is.
And most people will never go read all those reports. They just want to see that there's something behind it. Or they'll say, talk to Bob. Bob knows that number for our own company, but
Yep.
I also like the fact that you can adjust it based on your own sense of what reality is for you, or you can take a conservative view if you want to and see what it does to the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like here's an example of reduced emergency repair labor costs, $750,000. You can change that if you don't believe that number. And then that's how much you're spending today. And we're going to reduce it by 40%. You say, well, I don't think it's going to reduce it by 20%. Okay, great. Change it to 20%, so you can refine it on the fly as you're talking to the customer. Or if the customer says, you know what, I just don't believe this, reduce labor or lost revenue, you can just exclude it and it still shows up in your report. Now, in this case, it went negative because, the investment was bigger than the benefit now, but, you can include or exclude, delete them wholesale, add new benefits. I can just create a new one and describe what the benefit is. I can let AI do the whole thing for me. Lots of different ways to slice and dice to get a quantified cost justification to go along with your business case and your proposal.
Yep. Awesome. Well, good enough, you guys. Well, everybody, thanks so much for attending this webinar. We'll get the recording out to you. It's also out there on LinkedIn Live right now, which I'm really delighted with. And so for everyone, next week on June 4th, same time, we'll be focused on the buying experience. That webinar is the Buying Experience Edge, how to stand out and close more deals in a risk-averse market. And so we'll bring us all together. I'll introduce, the framework around how to drive a more compelling buying experience. We're calling that the total value experience. And there's key phases in how to do that and different dimensions. We've done a bunch of research to figure out what are those causal dimensions that drive the better buying experience. So I'll introduce that. We'll have a panel discussion about that next week on June 4th. So thanks, everybody, for attending. Thanks, Todd, for all that wisdom that you shared, best practice and how to shape the business case. Thanks, Dean, for weighing in and making sure this is all real. Darren, thank you also for introducing Value Navigator. And David, thanks for being the voice of reason, as always. So everyone, thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. What a powerful session with Todd Snelgrove and the rest of the team at valuepros.io. We explored how top-performing teams avoid the discount trap by building believable, buyer-ready business cases. Todd gave us a practical roadmap showing how to shift from cost conversations to total value discussions that actually resonate with executive decision makers. What really stood out for me was the insight that the supplier who co-builds the business case with the buyer wins 80% of the time. And then Darren showed you how you can harness the power of AI to quickly shape a business case with our brand new Value Navigator tool. The exciting thing is, this is just version 1.0 of Value Navigator. Strap in for more value in this tool as we evolve it in helping buyers buy. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to The Value Pro Show. And if you're feeling kind, leave us a review so others can find and enjoy it too. Wishing you successful value selling.